Is everything about to change for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as potential next President Donald Trump selects his running mate, a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin, and anti-Gary Gensler candidate? What is that going to mean for Bitcoin, for the crypto markets? Are we about to start seeing the traders price in a potential Trump victory? We also are going to talk about how much money exactly has TradFi bought on the dip when Bitcoin went from $60,000 to $52,000. The numbers are pretty massive, and it looks like it is continuing. We'll take a look at the ETF flow numbers. We're also going to talk about Mt. Gox distribution. Kraken receives thousands of Bitcoin. Is it all going to be immediate sell pressures? Ethereum spot ETF date has been officially set, July 23rd. What can we expect leading up to the official trading day, first trading day of the Ethereum spot ETF next Tuesday? Big Cardano move, and Binance has released their first half of 2024 crypto insight in the markets. We're going to take a look at that and some of the biggest narratives that have played out so far, and which narratives are going to take main stage moving into the latter half of 2024. We'll have that discussion and much, much more on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go. Hello, hello, hello. I am today not joined by Medium Rob. I am, in fact, joined by Big Forrest. Forrest, how you doing, brother?
What's up? Good. Thanks for having me on.
It's been such a pleasure to have you on the last few shows, Forrest. We appreciate you. I know you're a busy man, but we love having you on the show. We can't help ourselves. We like to bring you on. We like to have discussions. And we like to not have Robin here and replace him with you. And so big shout out to you, Forrest. What are your thoughts on, yesterday we ended the show and we talked about the VP pick was going to be announced. That was officially announced. As soon as right after we got off the show, we kind of had a discussion about it, after the show when the cameras were off. But what are your initial thoughts? And we'll get into more as far as who JD Vance is in terms of crypto and Bitcoin and why he could be potentially really good for our space a little bit later. But what were your initial thoughts on that?
A little bit surprised. Thought it was going to be Doug Burgum, but JD Vance. The more you look into him and where he's from, the more it makes sense. It sounds like Trump is trying to win a lot of swing states in the Rust Belt there. Otherwise, just glad that we have two pro crypto candidates on that ticket. And JD Vance is obviously like super pro crypto. So I think it's great for the industry. And I think one of the best trades after that announcement came out, one of the best trades is just getting exposure to the coins and tokens that the SEC has gone after relentlessly, because I think a lot of that's going to end up getting reversed or dropped.
That is interesting. What are some of those that kind of pop in your mind for us? I know for me, it's like Uniswap. Are there any other ones that kind of, or sectors maybe that you're kind of keeping an eye on?
I think the big one's XRP. For me, the big one is XRP. I added more XRP yesterday, more this morning. Quite bullish on XRP if we get this Trump 2024 ticket through. It's been the biggest, it's the biggest case in all of crypto with the SEC, and it's been ongoing for years. I think it's going to come to a resolution regardless, but then you get, open it up to a more crypto-friendly administration potentially in 2024. I think it's got the potential to have a lot of upside.
If you can see the smile on Rocco's face right now, you'd be very excited. But I don't want you to look at the smile on Rocco's face. I want you to look at this instead. So we show this every show in the beginning, and look at that for us. Legal notice. Craig Stephen Wright is not Satoshi Nakamoto. Very interesting there. He actually put out a post on X himself. So for us, we were wondering, right? We talked about this yesterday. We said, look, last week was a big week, right? 300 million, 200, 150, 78, and then ended the week on Friday with 310 million of inflows. And we're wondering, hey, look, Bitcoin's price has rebounded. We're trading at around 64, 65K yesterday. We're trading in the same range today. Would TradFi continue to buy? And the answer for us is yes. They are continuing to buy as we saw inflows of over $300 million again yesterday to kick the week off. Is this at all surprising to you? Is this something you expected? Or what are your thoughts here on, hey, it wasn't just buying the dip, which they did, But even as price has rebounded, they continue to buy more BTC. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a couple things are going on. I think the Trump presidency, Trump administration, which is now obviously even more pro Bitcoin and pro crypto than it was even 24 hours ago, is continuing to get priced in. Markets forward looking, and is obviously the polls are showing that Trump Vance is probably going to be the winning ticket with, I believe, like 70% odds. Obviously, that could change, but the market, particularly with regards to the crypto market and Bitcoin and they just it really likes that ticket because that ticket is very pro crypto. You've got them both speaking. I believe not both. I believe it's Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy, who's obviously involved in that
And RFK
administration as
too.
well. They're both talking at the Bitcoin conference here in July. So I think it's a continuation of that. And then you've also got gold up like 1.7% or something today. Gold's running hot. So, Bitcoin, you've got Larry Fink on TV yesterday talking about, Bitcoin's digital gold. Gold's doing really well today. I think gold is continuing to price in rate cuts. The reason that gold does well when the Fed cuts rates is because if you're looking for a quote unquote safe store of value, and when I mean safe store of, like, Bitcoin's a volatile store of value, but like if you're looking for like a traditional risk off store of value, you either go into like bonds or gold, right? Well, bonds, if they're cutting rates, you're not going to be able to get that 5+% anymore. So the opportunity cost of holding gold is that you're missing out on 5+% on treasuries. So that makes treasury, high rates make treasuries much more attractive than low rates. But if we're forward looking into and we're expecting the market's expecting low rates, you're going to expect the opportunity cost of holding gold to go down. That's going to make gold more attractive, precious metals more attractive. And again, Larry Fink is likening Bitcoin to a commodity, digital gold, similar to gold itself. So kind of trading in line with gold today and yesterday, as we've seen gold kind of bounce pretty hard.
Awesome. I do want to share this. So institutional investors buy $1.44 billion, or sorry, pour $1.44 billion into crypto in 1 week. And part of that is Mr. 100. He is now currently sitting on over 71,000 Bitcoin and is the 10th largest Bitcoin wallet in the world. Forrest, any up-to-date speculation on who potentially this Mr. 100 could be?
Yeah, I think it's Michael Dell. I think
You
it's
think so?
Dell. Yeah, he's coming. He was talking to Michael Saylor for a little bit. And now he's been reposting stuff about Bitcoin, reposting Larry Fink's, and he's the kind of guy he's got that kind of money to toss into Bitcoin. Also being involved, with Dell, they've kind of got the infrastructure and the ability to potentially pivot into Bitcoin mining. So Dell as a company, and then Michael Dell as the founder, could very well get it going heavily into Bitcoin, and pivoting heavily into Bitcoin.
Is
So
it
I
tweets?
I
Is it tweets
personally
like
think
this,
that's who
Forrest?
Mr. 100 is.
Is
What's
it
up?
tweets like this that kind of got you leaning that way, right? He did a poll,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like, come on. That's I mean, maybe he's not Mr. 100, and maybe it's just, Dell's gonna, buy some Bitcoin, go into Bitcoin mining. Maybe he's got a small bag, but I think he's among, billionaires that could afford to buy that much Bitcoin. There's a pretty small list of them, right? So, maybe it's Dell, the company itself, putting it on its balance sheet, but I think we'd have heard about that by now. I
Right.
think it might be just his personal holdings, but we'll see. Maybe it's how much wealth does he have?
$110
Michael
billion.
Dell net worth. He's worth how much?
110 B with a billion with a B.
Okay, yeah. So how big is that wallet? That's probably a fraction of his wealth.
Michael Saylor has a net worth of around $7 billion. And you got a man
Yeah.
that's over 10x that amount. And we're assuming he's the one buying. Will we ever find out? Who knows? But hey, you dig a little deep, you go on their page, you see what are they posting, who are they interacting with, who are they meeting with, where are their fancy yacht club parties? It is said that Michael Saylor has a big hand in Michael Dell and what they've been doing. And then, so I did, when I showed you the ETF flows, it did say that Craig Wright is not Satoshi. Well, this is a notice from Craig Wright officially stating he is not Satoshi Nakamoto. I think we all kind of knew that. We all scoffed and laughed at the idea that Satoshi would come out and publicly say, "Yeah, it's me. I own the wallet. I own the Bitcoin," when literally he just left and remained anonymous. So I guess it's official because Craig Wright himself said he is not Satoshi. So pretty interesting stuff there. We do have Magic joining us in a little bit to go over a Bitcoin chart, but I want to share this. I want to share this with you real quick for us. So I did mention J.D. Vance was selected as Trump's running mate. And this headline article here from Fox Business: Donald Trump and J.D. Vance create a pro-crypto presidential ticket. That's a headline there. I'll close this out. And well, why are people saying he's pro-crypto? And what has he said and done? Well, here is one example. This is from February of 2022. This is during the Canada trucker hysteria, where people were getting their accounts blocked because they were donating to the truckers that were protesting against vaccine mandates. To which J.D. Vance, senator at the time, this was February 15, 2022, reposted this message from the Canadian Deputy Prime Minister saying, "This is why crypto is taking off. The regime will cut off your access to banking if you have the wrong politics, whether it's to the left or to the right. I don't think that matters. But if they don't agree with you, they can cut off your banking," which we know Canada did. And then we had this. This is about a 1 minute, 45-second segment of a hearing that he was on. Let's take a listen.
I'm probably one of the few members of the committee that actually owns cryptocurrency. I've been fascinated by it for a long time. But I also, recognize that there are downsides to it, that there are risks that come along with it. And my basic bias here is that we don't really know what it is yet, meaning not just cryptocurrency, but a lot of the other underlying and related Web3 technologies, and that our regulatory approach should basically be to protect consumers while ensuring that we don't destroy the dynamic upside of this. And here's what I mean by the dynamic upside. Mr. Is it Reiners? What you just said is fascinating to me, and that I can tell you're sort of skeptical of the role that crypto is playing in society right now. And look, after what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried, there's a lot of cause for skepticism. What I wonder is how people would have described the internet in the 1970s, the 1980s, before it was commercially available, before it was a major part of the way that we did commerce. And that if we had taken an overbearing approach then, we might have destroyed a lot of the upside that have come over the last 3 decades. So I'm going to put this question to each of you, maybe just going from left to right. How do you think about that, about regulating crypto, not just in a way that protects consumers and also protects the upsides of the technology right now in February of 2023, but ensures that the innovation that's going to happen on this platform, which is really how I think of it, actually happens in a way that's relatively free, relatively fair, and preserves, as Senator Menendez said, the fact that this could become a tool in America's foreign policy and economic arsenal.
So that was pretty bullish. And then one more here. This is from J.D. Vance talking about Gary Gensler and blockchain technology. And then we'll get Magic and Forrest's thoughts on this after we watch this.
If there's a candidate for worst person, in my view, at least in terms of my substantive disagreements, I'm sure he's like a nice guy, is Gary Gensler. Okay, so Gary Gensler is sort of the complete opposite of my view. And there are 2 problems that I have with Gary. One of which is that I think he wants to inject politics way too much into the actual business of securities in the United States of America. But in some ways, the more fundamental issue, or at least the most relevant issue for this particular conference is the approach that Gary has taken to regulating blockchain and crypto seems to be almost the exact opposite of what it should be. And I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but the question the SEC seems to ask in regulating crypto is this a token with utility? And if it's a token with utility, then they seem to want to ban it. And if it's a token without utility, they don't seem to care. I almost think we should be the opposite here, right? I worry about financialization. I worry about, frankly, whether a lot of the crypto stuff is fundamentally fake. But if a token actually has utility, that's the sort of thing that, by all means, regulate it. By all means, be careful about, how consumers interact with it. But you don't want to just get rid of this stuff. And here's where I really, really worry about this is a lot of the newest challengers to social media, the social media incumbents of 2024 are going to require some blockchain technology to make their business work. Maybe they'll require a token that supports verification. There are all of these ways in which the companies, when I talk to sort of friends who are still in the VC industry, the companies that are most exciting to them, they're doing actual things in communications in the 21st century, in 2024, I should say. Those companies very often rely on high utility tokens to do things like verification. Well, if we're not making it possible to do verification, then we're going to make it really hard to challenge the existing incumbents in the space.
So I want to bring in Magic and Forrest here and kind of get their thoughts. Magic, welcome back to the show, my friend. Excited to have you. We got the trio here today, Joe and Forrest as well. So Magic, what are your thoughts on the kind of the clips we showed, and what's your forecast? You think the markets are going to start pricing in a potential pro-crypto dual ticket candidacy presidency going into 2025, or do you think it's already starting to be priced in now? That question was to you, Magic. Hello? Magic, can you hear me? All right, let's go to Forrest. Forrest, what are your thoughts? Kind of same question, and what are your overall thoughts on those video clips we kind of just saw?
Yeah, I mean, pretty common sense approach. I don't know enough about JD Vance to like make a judgment call on like how I think of him as a candidate. He seems pretty straightforward, pretty good for what you'd want on the Republican ticket at this point. But as far as his takes on crypto, they sound a lot like the takes that we've been having on this show for the last year and a half, 2 years. Like, just very frustrated with Gary Gensler's approach, just very confused by it, very annoyed by it, and asking for a common sense approach where we're not necessarily anti-regulation in the sense that you can't, we're not saying not to go and protect consumers and protect people from, a lot of the fraud that does go on in the crypto space. We haven't been saying that there's no fraud that goes on in the crypto space, but you've got to allow it room to grow, right? You've got to come in and put in regulations that are clear guidelines on what these companies and startups can and can't do. Because if you just leave it, gray area, they never know if they're crossing a line, and it just hinders growth. It's just bad for everybody. So far so good. I mean, I liked both of his takes there in both of those videos. I think they make a lot of sense, and I think they sound a lot like what we've been saying for the last 2 years here.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Magic. Well, we should be good with the audio. Magic, can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
Perfect. What are your thoughts with what potential Vice President J.D. Vance said, his thoughts on the industry? And do you think the markets are going to start pricing in a potential new administration, a much more pro-crypto administration, now that we know that his vice president pick is not only is he pro-crypto, but he holds Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as well?
That's actually pretty big, just considering his position. I think, we're going from an administration that's not friendly at all. And even before that, when Trump was president before, he wasn't exactly friendly to cryptocurrency. So, he'd made statements about it, saying that it was a scam, things like that. So it's huge, especially when you pair that with someone like Larry Fink, who just went on, I don't remember, I think it was with, what's his name? The guy's usually wrong. Yeah, and he was very pro Bitcoin, but not just like, hey, we're going to make a bunch of money on this, but really outlining why they're investing in it and why they think it's a viable alternative, which he used that word was alternative. And I thought that was really interesting choice of words. I overlooked the digital gold thing for that. And knowing that if JD Vance was in that position and Trump is coming around to it, it's very positive. That's a huge thing.
Let me ask you guys this question, and of course, we're kind of speculating here, but do you think him being pro-crypto was a part of the deciding factor of choosing him as a VP?
I think if Trump's pro crypto and it's a major issue to him, I would expect him to pick a VP that probably shares that. I know a lot of people were looking at like Vivek Ramaswamy, and then there was like the RFK thing thrown out there, and these guys are all pro crypto. So when you look across the board at who he was considering, at least from what we know, potentially that we're trying to put their name out there, they were all pro crypto. So I would imagine that they knew that he was accepting of that position, and that maybe he even was looking for it, because it is a stance that goes against Biden. And, you know, in past elections, there's been a lot of one issue voters, you know, in the past. I don't think it's quite that simple ever, but people do that. They'll vote over one issue, and crypto people feel like they've been targeted unfairly by the SEC and Gary Gensler and the United States government for a long time. So I imagine they're probably going to come out pretty strong for a candidate that is pro crypto. They'll one issue, you know, cast votes on that. So yeah, I think he's going after that demographic, because it is a younger demographic as well.
Do you kind of agree, Forrest? Do you think that this VP pick had crypto weighted on it at all?
I kind of think it was complimentary and an added bonus. I don't know if that would have been like the deal breaker thing that he would have chosen JD Vance for. My guess is he chose him because he was from Ohio and in the Rust Belt, and that's where they're kind of really trying to win some swing states. I think that was probably the main thing. But the fact that he's into crypto and is, you know, borderline probably a subject matter expert, when you take into account his VC background, is very complimentary to Trump, right? The issue that Trump could run into being pro crypto is, let's be honest about it, Donald Trump does not know a lot about crypto. He is not going, if you asked him, you know, to explain to you how Bitcoin works or how Ethereum works or what a token is, like, he probably is not going to be able to answer those questions, but JD Vance can. So I think, you know, this is something that, you know, this is a pick that's very, very complimentary, you know, with the end goal of being, you know, a pro crypto ticket. But I wouldn't necessarily think that is like the, you know, the number one issue on Trump's mind when he's going to pick the VP. I mean, he said it himself. His priority was picking somebody who he felt like could run the country if you know, if it needed to be passed on to them. But overall, I think, you know, probably a decent factor in the decision overall.
I think it's just exciting to be in this point in time where we've spent essentially all of 2022 in just a negative government regulatory sentiment environment. 2023 started to get a little better, and now we might not be front and center, but we have a seat at the table. We've gotten loud enough, and our money has spoken. That is also loud enough, apparently. And so just exciting to see where we were just 2 years ago to where we are now, talking about getting pro-crypto regulation, getting rid of Gary Gensler. Again, like Magic mentioned, Larry Fink doing a Bitcoin tour, talking about an alternative in digital gold. And so I don't know what other validation anyone needs. And I know some of you watching, even me in my early days of being in crypto, things go bad. You kind of question, like, am I in the right space? If this doesn't give you confirmation or kind of put your mind at ease as far as, are you in the right place at the right time? I don't know what else will. Magic, I know last Tuesday you were with us. Bitcoin was trading around $54,000, $55,000. And I had asked you, I said, what are the probabilities that the top is in? You said 50-50. I want to ask you that question again with the price action we've had since the last time you were here. We're trading at almost 65K now, a pretty big bounce back. We know TradFi buys the dips because they did all last week. They even bought another $300 million of the ETF yesterday. Has your percentages changed, and what are your thoughts? And then let's take a look at a Bitcoin chart, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So have they changed? Obviously, it's favorable. You had a good bounce. We talked about it live. I believe it was last night or the night before. It was Sunday night. Yeah, it was last night. No, last night was Monday. Last night was softball. Sorry. I get things confused. Once you have kids, everything bleeds together. It was Sunday. We were live for the public. We were live for the public, and we talked about it. And we basically said that if you're looking at the order flow, there was no reason to short this yet. And I think we were trading somewhere in this region here, coming into like medium time frame resistance, so to speak. But again, for me, if you recall, the key level is about 65K. And I think we're getting ready to cross that threshold, and you'll start looking for the top side of, depending on how you want to draw this. There's people that are, as you know, drawing it as a broadening wedge, which I've kind of said I don't really agree with, but it doesn't matter if I agree with it because the key level is still going to be the same on either one. When you have a broadening wedge, what do you look for? You look for the 50% mark. That's going to be your big barometer. If you're living above this, if you go back to our last broadening wedge, that was in like the 30 to 24K range. This is like okay, I have to, do I lock in profits here? Sure. But if I'm living above this, I have expectation of now maybe rotating back to the top side of the pattern. Even if you're looking at it through the lens that I see it in terms of just a channel. If you recall, we use our fib channel and we're just looking at it like so and projecting for the levels. You're still above that 50% mark. You're above one of your major inflection points in the market, looking for the top side of it to complete. So you'd still be looking for higher prices until there's a sign of weakness. There's really no reason to be too bearish just yet. The only thing that you needed to see on this candle that would start to really sway my opinion on the 50-50 thing was, if you recall, we had a 6-month chart. The 6-month chart, by all means, was a good chart here at 64,990. You'd swept it into the all-time high in 2021. You've come back up. You've retested the area, 73K obviously being that big zone. But you really want to start seeing this push back above this level. And if it does, you don't have much between you and all-time high. And this area of the chart, hasn't really been lived in terms of like time. So if we start doing that and seeing the things we need to see, there's no reason just to be bearish and be like, well, I gave it a coin flip down here, but I don't want to, retract my statement. So I just keep saying that, no, I'm going to be right eventually. This is just a fake out if you don't have any data for that. So for me, I'm still neutral. I'm trading this as a structure. And as of right now, you have to ask yourself what the better trade was. You can trade it any way you like. You could trade it as an SFP of the monthly low. You could have traded it as a quarterly low, I believe. SFP, however you wanted to look at it, you had these set up for a long. So once re-entered the range, we have our targets. The first big one is going to be this like 65K region. It wasn't just because you have these, prior highs. You also had, averages of price that were coming in there from, this is for July, right? So this is the monthly pivot. You have a quarterly pivot. You had a 60-day pivot. All these major averages were coming in there. And you can see that you'd even come down and hung around and tagged your 6-month average. So, the averages are going to usually get you where you need to be. But yeah, above 64,990. I mean, you've got a couple levels to be aware of. Of course, 67,000 is a gold pocket. There's a point of control there. There's a monthly level. But realistically, you're looking at this to potentially try to run back up to like 71.4 almost. In my opinion. And at that point, why wouldn't you just make a new high and take this out, because you don't have a proper SFP up here. It's not like a huge drop off in terms of, open interest or anything up there that's going to signal that this was a major high. It was a decent one if you look at the order flow, but it wasn't like something that you'd be like, okay, this is an all-time high. So yeah, I'd remain neutral, but if you get back above 65K, you'd be targeting the top side of your structure here and realistically probably new highs. And then you just have to be careful you don't do something crazy like hit like 81K and then nuke, but I think that's unlikely, especially with the landscape of how things are kind of coming along. Listening to Larry Fink talk a little bit, it's all kind of like, all right, these are things that we've all talked about and said were going to happen for a long time. And some people have been much more on that drum than others, which kudos to them. But it is one of those things where, I'm still going to trade the charts over it every time. But in the back of my mind, I have to think, it does play a little bit of a factor in confidence going forward if things are falling into place, like Trump getting JD Vance on board. And as Forrest said, he's not just pro crypto. He's a matter expert. We don't have that at all, almost anywhere in politics, and if he's going to do it in a positive manner, why wouldn't you see a normal cycle? Maybe we don't see that a bridge cycle and we see a normal, 4-year cycle or something close to it.
Awesome. And then Magic, we got a big week coming up for Ethereum, leading into Tuesday, July 23rd, which also is my daughter's birthday. Shout out to my daughter. So July 23rd is the date that we're expecting the ETF. And I'll just kind of show this real quick. So this is from unchainedcrypto.com. Spot Ether ETFs to start trading on July 23rd. And so What does the setup on the Ethereum chart look like, Magic? Are we gearing up for a big rally? And looking back at what Bitcoin did leading into the ETF, had a nice rally from around 40K up to close to 60. Do you expect something similar from Ethereum? Does the structure of the chart tell you, or does it say otherwise?
You've got a very similar setup to Bitcoin. It's actually one that we discussed on your show when we were trading up here above the quarterly open at 36.45. Technically, it's the prior quarter open. And you'd asked me, what I thought if we were going to go to all-time highs. And I said, yeah, sure. If you break back above 4K, then we can start talking about maybe like, I think it was 5,200 or some change or something like that. But realistically, it could dip as low as $2,800. And it did come down, take that low after losing a single print right here. You've now got an SFP. So the setup is, in theory, fairly bullish. And you'd be looking at this to probably come back up to 36.45 and then potentially 38.87 to retest some of this, resistance. Because you just have to look at the chart and say, where's my range at? Okay, so here's where resistance has been. Here's where support has been. We've come down. We've tested support. We've gotten a very favorable reaction. Why wouldn't I expect to see us come back up and retest this area? And if broken, then yeah, we can start talking about new highs on Ethereum as well. So everything's doing what it's supposed to do, and consolidating underneath resistance in this manner is generally bullish. If you think about it, like you're not up here putting in, too bearish of market structure really just yet. You'd have to see a fundamental breakdown, like another lower high here, and then coming back down and then turning this into like a descending triangle. Sure. But that's going to take a long time, and I think that's the least likely of the two scenarios. So for now, I would trade this for what it was. The best trade was a long setup. You've probably got a little more on that setup to go, but it's fairly well underway. The only levels I would look to trade off of it, if I was looking just very, very briefly, without doing almost any TA, I would just mark out my previous month low here for June. July has already swept it. But if you were to come back to it, you want to see this level being support. You want to see that SR flip. If you don't see it, it's not the end of the world. 32.40 was the low in June. You'd want to see, living above that level there, at least locally for the immediate uptrend. And that would, beget continuation of these higher levels that we just talked about between 36 and 3,800. But the better trade, for me is I'm always that guy that's like, I want to trade down here in this region. I'm not one of those people that just starts opening up new positions as the move gets going. If I miss my opportunity, I generally just look for another good setup. That's my style of trading. Now, some people don't mind doing the intra-move trading, so to speak, and that's all on them because everybody's got a different risk profile and a different strategy, so it is what it is there.
So you're telling me you don't FOMO into the top. Interesting.
I never do. I've done it before. Trust me, I learned the hard way.
Same.
Just like everyone else in this space. You learn the hard way one way or another.
That is so true. And I think the people that say they haven't are just lying, because when you're new into the space, whether it was 2014, 2016, 2020, you probably gotten FOMO at some point. Hey, sometimes we still do get FOMO, and we're humans. We have emotions, and that's just what happens. Guys, if you enjoyed Magic Internet Money, I recommend you go join his Discord. I have that link pinned to the top of the chat here. He joins us every Tuesday. We love having him on. Magic, thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Awesome, man. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
All right. Now, before we move forward, I want to give a big shout out to our channel sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by Legacy Network. Exciting news. Their app is live for Android users. As if you go to the Google Play Store, type in Legacy Academy, and you should be able to download the app. Go in there. You can see what I've been talking about for the last 2.5, 3 months. Apple iOS download is going to be live. They're just waiting on Apple to finish up the listing on their app store. We will be doing a demo once that goes live. We look forward to bringing on the founder of the show, or of the project, onto the show to talk about the Legacy Academy app. Super excited to have him on as a channel partner. Now, Forrest, July 23rd, ETH ETF, you have the experts saying they were expecting 10 to 15% of the inflows we saw from Bitcoin, so around 4 to 5 billion in a matter of, I think the time frame was 3 to 6 months. Now, people might think like, oh, that's nothing. I mean, that is a lot of money, and you're talking about a token that has no essentially, you look at Bitcoin, right? They got miners who have overhead, so selling pressure. You don't have that anymore with ETH. In fact, the token becomes deflationary as usage goes up. We know BlackRock is using it. What are your thoughts on the timeline here? And I know we kind of talked about our expectations of inflows, but any up-to-date thoughts on the July 23rd date?
Yeah, like the same thing as yesterday. Super, super bullish. Expect a little volatility if Grayscale, Ethereum gets sold off like we did with the GBTC sell off that brought us down to 38K. But I don't like. I think it's silly, and I could eat my words here, but I truly, I'll just tell you what I believe. I think it's silly the people who think that this could be bearish or sell the news. Like, an ETF that is going to bring in billions of net new inflows into a coin or into a token is not bearish. It's just not bearish. Could there be some volatility? Could there be some Grayscale Ethereum sell off in the short term? Yes. But if you look at 3 to 6 months down the road, you're going to have more buying than selling more than likely with regards to specifically the introduction of this Ethereum ETF. So I'm super bullish on crypto right now for at least the next month and a half, unless anything changes. If something were to happen, Bitcoin were to go back down below 59K, I'd probably change my view on that. But as long as we're above the range, then I'm happy, I'm bullish. And as long as Trump is living and breathing, I'm bullish. I think if he were to die, you just sell everything, short everything, and get out ASAP, because that would not be good. Markets would not like that.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, tend to agree with you there. I want to give a big shout out to Alex Crypto, 10 Canadian dollars super chat. Although he didn't this time apologize for being Canadian, but that's okay. We take Canadian as well. They're my favorite crypto show, especially with Magic bringing in a constant alpha. Thanks, friends. Have a great day. Thank you, Alex, and thank you all of you that support this channel. Now, let's talk about the prices here. We already went over Bitcoin and Ethereum. So Bitcoin 64.7, ETH 34.64, up 13% over the last 7 days. Tether's market cap is approaching $113 billion. That's pretty massive. And USDC has made a nice rebound as well, closing in on $34 billion. Solana had a nice rally for us, up 4% over the last 24 hours, $162. Where do you stand on Solana? Are you still as bullish on the project as you were a few months ago? Are you more bullish? Are you less bullish? Has nothing changed?
Yeah, bullish on Solana. I think it continues to gain in dominance and eventually reprices more towards where Ethereum's at. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on Ethereum right now with Ethereum's ETF launching. I think ETH could potentially still be the better trade in the short term. We'll see. But Solana has ETF filings in the pipeline as well. Just could take a little bit longer for those to actually manifest into real ETFs, just basically because we don't have Solana futures trading on the CME or on Coinbase, if I'm not mistaken, unless they're going to list it here soon. So yeah, I think Solana, we probably need a new administration to get a Solana ETF. So I think Solana is still like the top three are like Bitcoin, ETH, Solana. Like those are any portfolio in crypto should probably be consist of those three with some level of weighting. Out past that is, I think it starts to get considerably more risky. But yeah, still bullish on Solana. Just think ETH might have a chance to outperform here for the first time in a while.
I want to ask you, Forrest, we've had the Bitcoin ETF, and, in the world of crypto, you have the Bitcoin maxis that refuse to they separate crypto and Bitcoin, right? So it's Bitcoin and then everything else, right? The altcoin markets. Do you think TradFi has or is going to do the same thing as we get more ETFs, an Ethereum ETF, a Solana ETF, a Dogecoin ETF, a basket of meme coin ETFs, layer one ETFs? So like, at some point over the next 5 years, we're going to have so many different ETF products and different ways to invest and have exposure to crypto and Bitcoin on Wall Street. Do you think it's going to be the same to where it's Bitcoin and everything else? Or do you think that Wall Street and these investors are going to look at the market as a whole? And if they do, would that be negatively impacting the potential price appreciation of Bitcoin, as maybe instead of, hey, we only have Bitcoin available, or hey, Bitcoin stands alone, I'm doing a different allocation? Or you think it's going to be more of, hey, 5% to crypto that includes Bitcoin, and then it's going to draw money away from the ETF flows for Bitcoin and kind of diversify more across the rest of the altcoins?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin dominance as a chart has probably peaked or is very close to peaking for like probably ever.
Really?
I don't think that we'll see. I think Bitcoin dominance is somewhere around 50%, 40 high 40s, low 50s. Whenever that tops out, and I have a feeling it's going to top out here, or either it has already topped out or is going to start accelerating to the downside as this Ethereum ETF goes through. Um, Once that peaks, I think that's the peak for good. I think we never see 50% plus Bitcoin dominance again, just because we're, like you said, we're going to get more ETF products with Wall Street. I don't think Bitcoin maximalism is going to extend to Wall Street and be as pervasive as it is among the type of investors that are early adopters of Bitcoin. You look at the profile of Bitcoin early adopters, they're very cynical about the future of finance, the future of the economy, right? They're hedging, like they're early to Bitcoin because they believe in the downfall of fiat currency, which is a totally fine belief to have. Uh, but the average person, the average investor, the average Wall Street institute does not feel the exact same way about that or as passionately about it as a lot of early Bitcoin investors do. So the profile of the early Bitcoin investors, the people who are investing heavily pre-ETF, they're more likely to lean towards Bitcoin maximalism. Whereas I think TradFi investors who have view things as looking to hedge risk and have portfolios of a variety of different diversified assets, I think they're going to be looking to diversify. Yeah, they'll have Bitcoin, but I think they'll also have Ethereum. If we get a Solana ETF, I think they'll also have Solana. And while I don't think that's necessarily super negative for a bad thing for Bitcoin, I think it's I don't think it's going to mean that Bitcoin is going to zero or anything like that, or anything's going to flip Bitcoin in a big way. But I think the dominance of Bitcoin in this market will probably steadily decline in the coming years as we see more altcoins and more products reach the market.
That's a good perspective for us. And as you were speaking, I was waiting for the dominance ticker on CoinMarketCap to come through. 53.7% is where Bitcoin dominance is currently. You can see here, volume is up 33%. Here you go, 53.7% Bitcoin dominance, 17.5% ETH dominance. Do you think the ETH dominance will ever go over 20% again?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance that ETH dominance does spike high after the ETF, but I think like dominance, I think the market's going to continue to get more and more dispersion, right? Like I think Bitcoin and ETH can both continue to rise in price, but I think both of their dominances can decrease over time just because you have more, a larger variety of legitimate products entering and projects entering the space, right? Like you've got all of these real world asset projects that are probably going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You've got stablecoin market cap that's probably going to start continue to accelerate to the upside. You've got Solana now entering the large cap space and staying there and eating up dominance against Bitcoin and ETH. Right. If you look at the Solana versus Bitcoin chart or the Solana versus Ethereum chart, it's like it's been vertical for the past 6 to 12 months. Solana's been outperforming both Bitcoin and Ethereum, eating up market dominance. So I think there's just going to be, like it's like anything, right? You look at smartphones, you look at computers. It's generally not one single entity that dominates the entire market. I think there's probably going to be 5, 6, 7 entities that continue to eat up market share. And right now we really only have like 2.5. You've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then now Solana starting to enter the space. I think we're probably going to level out more towards 5 or 7 major use cases of cryptocurrency that end up taking a lot of market share and dominance.
I did a poll. I'm curious to see what the community thinks. Will Ethereum dominance ever get over 20% again? I'm in the no camp because I think as the world of altcoins and crypto and blockchain becomes more interoperable, you won't need to stay in the Ethereum ecosystem or onboard into the Ethereum ecosystem to have access to that ecosystem. And as more solutions, the rise of Solana, maybe Cardano, you want to throw some other altcoins in there, some other layer ones in there. I think the dominance of over 20%, I think those days are over. That's just my personal opinion. And I agree with you as well on the Bitcoin dominance. I think that thing once it tops out. I don't know if it's ever going to get back there again. And El Chingon in the chat, made a good comment, said, Wall Street's not tribal. They just care about making money. Where can I get the most returns? Am I going to get a higher rate of return from Bitcoin at 100K or from Solana at $300 or from Ethereum at $5,000? So I think those are the questions they're going to have, not, hey, everything else is a shitcoin. Bitcoin is the true thing. Yes, I agree with a lot of those statements. Majority of them I agree with. I'm also on the camp that I think fiat currency is going to eventually crumble. But like you said, it's not about what we think. We're trying to figure out where's the money going to move. And the guys with the most money that are going to pour into the market, do they care about that? Probably not. And so these are all great things to keep in mind. I want to go over this for us. So Binance released their half-year report. And some things they have highlighted here are pretty interesting. I'm curious to get your take on some of these things. So this is from the cryptopolitan.com. Key 2024 takeaways. Layer ones had a promising start to the year as Bitcoin maintained its market dominance. In the first half of 2024, there was a surge of airdrops in the layer two space, and substantial amounts of capital have poured into the layer two chains, resulting in a staggering TVL in layer twos of $43 billion. Now, I want to note the totality of TVL across all chains, layer one, layer two, across the entire ecosystem is right around 90 billion. And I will actually right now give you an up-to-date number here, 98 billion. So almost half was in layer twos, or at least in the first half of 2024. Also talks about stablecoin market has experienced a significant rebound with only a 14.5% gap remaining from the peak in April of 2022, which was right before Terra Luna's entire ecosystem crashed. And then it also talks about Web3 gaming. That sector experienced a robust performance in Q1, but unfortunately, gaming project tokens, along with the rest of the altcoin market, witnessed a significant decline in market cap in Q2 of this year. And then finally, year to date, Bitcoin has seen a 48% return, while Ethereum has also performed well with a 43% return. And pitting these against Alphabet, aka Google, they're up 30% year to date. Amazon up 27%. The Japanese markets 18%. Nasdaq. So Bitcoin and ETH have outperformed every single top TradFi benchmark. Any takeaways from this report for us? Whether it's the gaming one, the layer twos, stable coins. Any thoughts on this report here by Binance?
I mean, it's definitely positive, right? Things are moving in the correct direction for crypto. We're seeing growth and growth metrics that we'd like to see. TVL is always a great metric to pay attention to. Personally, very skeptical of investing in the layer two space.
Why is that?
I think it's very competitive, right? You've got a lot of layer twos that don't necessarily have big differentiating factors between the two of them, or between among them. You look at what's the argument? And we talked about this briefly a little while back, but Matic, Arbitrum, Optimism, all layer twos, what makes and they're all essentially the same value proposition, right? They're all kind of vying for the same pool of investment capital and speculative capital. What's going to make one of those succeed over the others? And you can kind of pay attention to which ones are winning in the TVL battle, but then that will probably lead you to Arbitrum, which is down 70% and near its bear market lows. Because the Arbitrum token doesn't really have a use case besides governance, right? So a lot of these layer two tokens, they're not particularly enticing. They don't pay out revenue share. They're super inflationary. There's tons of VC unlocks, and they don't do anything. A lot of them aren't even needed for gas. Like Arbitrum, uses Ethereum as the gas token, not ARB tokens. So while I think the injection of capital into layer twos and the growth of TVL is a good sign, I don't necessarily think that it's an attractive space to invest in, but overall it does bode well for the entirety of the Ethereum ecosystem and ETH as an asset, which is deflationary and has a better value proposition. I think if you're going to want to invest in the ETH ecosystem, a lot of people kind of overlook ETH itself in order to try to chase more speculative assets within the ecosystem, but sometimes those come with risks. So I'd really think that people should not overlook ETH itself, just because it may move a little bit slower than the rest of the market at times.
Do you think there is any value in trying to find which of those L2s will take the cake, which one will be the winner? Because obviously, Forrest, we both mentioned and the article mentioned 43 billion in TVL. So that's pretty big. Now, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of competition, but is it worth it for the person watching to spend the time to figure out and point out, hey, this layer 2, I think, is going to take the cake? Is there enough upside there to spend the time to do that, or should people just forget about L2s as an investment and you'll get better returns somewhere else?
I mean, I think there's going to be periods of time where L2s do outperform, like off this ETH ETF, right? You've got Arbitrum down at 70 cents. If ETH goes to like $5,000-$6,000, you'll probably just see some speculative flows into Arbitrum, and there will probably be individual days where ARB is up 6% versus Ethereum's 2% for that specific day. In the long run, though, I think you're probably going to bleed value against Ethereum. Like if you go and look at, any of these layer 2s tokens, if you chart them against their ETH pairs, right? You look at their performance against ETH over a long period of time, 6, 12 plus months, they're generally down. They're generally underperforming Ethereum itself over a long period of time. Yes, they might have some spikes, and yes, in specific alt seasons, they may make big jumps, but then usually they bleed against ETH in the downturns. So unless you're a very, very active trader, so far, I think being an investor in these L2s, unless you caught them very, very early, and again, that doesn't even apply to Arbitrum. Arbitrum's down. Even if you got into Arbitrum early, it's down. If you got into Matic very early, like back in 2020, 2019, 2020, yeah, you've done really, really well on Matic. But again, you look at it, compared to where it was last market cycle, even in the bear market, around $1 plus, it's down quite a bit. These L2s I think there's an oversupply of these tokens. They're, have tons of VC unlocks. I generally think that for the average person, you're better off, unless you're somebody that's like an active trader or you have a catalyst event that you want to like be exposed to these L2s for. I think the average person is better off just benefiting from the deflationary nature of Ethereum over a long period of time versus trying to get fancy, and then you end up underperforming if you just bought and held ETH. So that's my take on it. I know that's not exciting. It's not fun. It's not like, hey, get rich quick. But I think for the vast majority of people, they would just be better off staying patient in ETH. And I think ETH can do some, can have some pretty spectacular upside here. Especially in comparison to slower moving assets or TradFi assets.
I'm gonna tend to agree with you, and I think it's important to have these conversations, right? People see this person turned 1,000 into 100,000, or got 100x or 200x in a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and it's important to understand that just is not normal. Doesn't happen all the time. More times than not, people go chasing these things, they lose all their money. I've been there. I'm sure Forrest has been there. Maybe in his early days, and some people watching, I'm sure they've been there as well. So, but there's tons of upside, tons of narratives to really dig your feet into. I think RWA is a big one. I think AI is a big one, whether you believe in it or not. As far as crypto having a place in AI moving forward, there's still going to be speculation, as we saw some of the top AI coins really rally. Arweave, ICP has rallied. Near Protocol has rallied. WorldCoin has started to rally again after news of them extending their lockup period for their investors. So, but I agree with Forrest. A lot of these tokens that were launched, big VC, big early backer allocations, and once they're unlocked, they're essentially going to get sold, right? You're a VC, you're venture capital, you're investor. Your job is to make money. You don't care about holding a token. You don't care about the community. You don't give a shit. You just want to make money. And that's why you invest money. And, you can't blame them for selling it. It's just, do you want to be on the other end of that, or can you identify better projects to have exposure to? And then I want to talk about this real quick. So Mt. Gox, this is something that has been talked about for the last, feels like freaking 10 years. So Kraken has officially started receiving some Mt. Gox distributions. And the number here. So Kraken users have reportedly received an email from the exchange notifying them that the Mt. Gox reimbursement funds have been sent to Kraken and will be distributed within 7 to 14 days. Arkham Intelligence also flagged a transfer of around 48,000 Bitcoin valued at $3.1 billion from a Mt. Gox trustee wallet on the morning of July 16th. So today, and the platform believes that it's a Kraken associated wallet. Now, I do want to note, people forget a lot of the term is on my tongue here. But essentially, you could sell your right to the distribution for a discounted amount, and people will come in and buy it. And so that has been done as well. So are we going to see dump from that? I think the whole Mt. Gox, we're going to dump, oh my God. I think that has tapered off a lot. Now, maybe it's not all gone. Are we going to see some selling? Sure. But I think the number thrown out there is only like 10 to 15% of the distributions, the reimbursements will turn into selling pressure. But I just, what people can understand is there's always going to be something. It's either going to be, the next is going to be the US is going to start selling Bitcoin, their Bitcoin, or whatever narrative it is, or the miners are capitulating, or there's always going to be something that is going to scare people as far as, hey, we could see some potential downward price action. If you want to trade around those, go ahead. Would not recommend it as you're trying to time how the markets are going to react, what people are going to do, and you're trying to get information ahead of the rest of the markets, because we know they have trading bots that literally just go off of what headlines are, and they execute trades based on those headlines. And this is all ran by AI and like high frequency trading, more so in the stock market. But there's always going to be something. And so if every time something pops up, or this person is going to sell, or we're going to see outflows, you're going to kill yourself trying to time the tops and buy the bottoms. It's just not going to happen. Your best bet, honestly, if you're planning on staying in this space for more than 5 years, is to just identify the coins, and I would be heavily into Bitcoin, identify the ones, and just leave it there, man. Leave it there. Don't try to time the market. Don't try to time the top or the bottom. Don't try to get ahead of the news. If you're going to do that with trading, sure, but have a separate little segment of your portfolio. But your investments long-term, just sit there, leave it, reevaluate every 6 months, every 3 months, every 1 year. Is anything fundamentally changed? No. Is my theory still in place as far as why I'm so bullish on it, why I want to hold it long-term? If the answer is yes, leave it be, man. Everything's the ebbs and flows. Whatever comes down will go up, and well, most of the things will go up. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't think this Mt. Gox thing, I think the whole market's freaking out. I think we saw that last week coupled with Germany. But of course, doesn't mean we're never going to have a drawdown again. It's just I think the price is going to stabilize more, and we'll see slower legs up in the price of Bitcoin versus massive rally up to that, 80, 85, 90K. So we're done for us. Anything you want to add before I tornado us out of here?
No, sounds good. Great show. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Big thank you to Magic as well for joining us. And of course, big thank you to Forrest. He'll be joining us again tomorrow. And also big shout out to our production team. We got Chase and Rocco back there. So thank you, gentlemen. Rocco, there's Chase. Show your face, Chase. Lean in there. There you go. And we got someone in the background. I can't see him. Good job. He's watching cooking videos. Anyways, guys, that'll do it for today's show. Rocco! A lot of tornadoes in Chicago. That was very weird. Anyways, thank you for watching today. Make sure to come back tomorrow. We're going to have an even better show for you guys. If you haven't watched our latest Casper video, do yourselves a favor. Go watch that video. We'll see you tomorrow.
Crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in. For big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Named according to your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming, hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. So